Imagine waking to the coppery tang of ozone in your kitchen air, as if lightning had struck your home while you slept. You rub your eyes, the dream's residue clinging like cold sweat, and shuffle toward the sink for a glass of water. The linoleum is unnaturally cold beneath your bare feet, a damp chill seeping up through the soles. Outside, a thick, rolling bank of fog presses against the glass, so dense it swallows the familiar shapes of your neighbor's house and the streetlights. Then, cutting through the muffled silence, comes a sound that doesn't belong. The deep, mournful groan of a foghorn. Your hand freezes on the faucet. That sound belongs to a rocky coastline, miles of empty ocean, not a suburban backyard. And as the fog momentarily parts, you see it, impossibly, terrifyingly close. A colossal black and white striped lighthouse. Its single, cyclopean beam sweeps across your kitchen wall, painting the room in a slow, searching arc of blinding white light before plunging it back into an even deeper darkness. It wasn't on a shore. The figure was standing in a cornfield, 100 miles from the nearest ocean. The fog on screen cleared slightly. It revealed the stark, terrifying image. A gigantic, black and white striped lighthouse tower. Its surface was covered in rust and dried salt. An impossible monument to the heartland. A single, blinding beam of light swept across the camera. This isn't a story about the sea. This is the story of the Carter family, and the night the beacon of nowhere came from. Peaceful, wide-open skies hung over the flat plains of central Kansas. The Carter farmhouse, a stark white structure, stood solitary against the endless plains. A lone pickup truck trailed a plume of dust along the dirt road that stretched to the horizon. John and Sarah Carter had fled Chicago's relentless noise, seeking solace in this quiet expanse. The profound stillness of the plains felt like a fragile gift they didn't yet understand. For their son Mike, a quiet 12-year-old obsessed with weather patterns and maps, it was a paradise of raw data. They purchased the old Henderson place for a song. The realtor mentioned something about atmospheric oddities, but they dismissed it with a laugh. They assumed it was just the usual gossip from Tornado Alley. Stares into her coffee mug, her gaze fixed on the fields beyond the window. Flips slowly through a farm equipment catalog, the pages whispering as they turn. Hunches over a tower, its glow illuminating his intent face. On his screen, a radar map pulses with strange, concentric rings of color over their remote location. Mom, the barometric pressure's plunging unnaturally fast. There's no storm system for 1,000 miles. The air feels thick, charged with a metallic tang. Outside, the wind has died completely. The only sound is the frantic ticking of the barometer. It shouldn't be doing this. Something is wrong with the air itself. Sarah offered a tense smile. Your gadgets need more attention than the old tractor, kiddo. John tried to dismiss it, his voice low, probably just a glitch. Enjoy the quiet while it lasts. But the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was thick and expectant, like the air before a storm. Mike looked back at his tablet, his frown deepening as the screen flickered with corrupted data, a metallic scent of ozone pricking his senses. The pressure reading plummeted. Outside, a clear blue sky began to haze over with a thin, milky fog. The first sign wasn't something they saw, it was something they heard that night. The perfect country darkness felt thick enough to touch, broken only by the chirping of crickets. Then, from somewhere deep in the black, a low, resonant boom shuddered through the ground. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic, like old iron. For a moment, the night insects fell silent, leaving a void more unsettling than any sound. Not thunder, it's rhythmic, like a colossal heartbeat. Mike jolted upright in bed, the sudden movement sharp in the quiet room. His gaze snapped to the weather station on his nightstand. The humidity gauge glared back at him. 99%. In the bone-dry air of the desert night, the reading was a physical impossibility. The window's glass was fogged over from the outside, though the night air was clear and still. Inside the sealed room, John lay awake, his eyes fixed on the ceiling's shadowed expanse. A faint, metallic scent of ozone seeped into the air, carrying a damp chill that clung to the skin. His breath hitched as a slow, wet scratching began to whisper against the outer wall. John's voice dropped to a raw whisper, barely audible above the rhythmic wash of waves against the hull. Sarah. His breath hitched. Do you hear that? A low groan vibrated through the ship's timbers, a sound too deep and organic to be machinery. Sarah stirred, her voice thick with sleep. Just the ships. Dreaming of the lake again, John? We're in Kansas. The low boom resonated again, closer now, vibrating through the floorboards. The air in the room grew dense, carrying a faint, metallic scent like cold iron. John's breath caught in his throat, his body rigid against the sheets. A faint, phosphorescent glow pulsed rhythmically against the curtains, casting an eerie, unnatural light. Stepping onto the porch at dawn, Sarah froze, her coffee forgotten. The world was encased in a thick, cold, ocean fog that smelled of salt and decay. The air grew heavy and damp, and a distant, rhythmic scratching sound began to echo through the murk. The world fell into a suffocating quiet. No birdsong, no insect hum, only the steady drip of moisture broke the heavy stillness. The air grew thick with the scent of salt, decayed seaweed, and corroded metal. Every sound was swallowed by the oppressive, dripping white. Sarah's voice, muffled and strained, cut through the stillness. John? Mike? Do you see this? By noon, The fog clung stubbornly to the landscape, refusing to burn away. The air grew thick and damp, carrying the faint, metallic scent of wet earth and something else. Something stale. A distant, irregular dripping sound echoed, the only break in the heavy quiet. The wall never moved. It simply remained, a 10-foot monolith of pure white, smothering their 40 acres. The air grew unnaturally still, thick with the scent of ozone and cold earth. Then, the internet died, a sudden, silent severance that left them stranded. In the quiet, only the faint, damp chill of the wall whispered against their skin. All cell signals vanished. The landline crackled with static that, when strained to listen, carried faint, desperate shouts in an alien tongue. In the living room, Mike unfurled a yellowed, water-stained surveyor's map of the property he discovered in the basement. The paper felt unnervingly damp and carried the scent of mildew and old earth. As his fingers traced its lines, a profound, quiet dread began to coil in his gut. Mike's finger traced the old map's faded ink. Look, this whole area, it's not labeled as farmland. The parchment felt brittle, almost damp to the touch. The old map calls it the shallows, he whispered, the words hanging in the air like a warning. A faint scent of ozone and old paper filled the cramped room. John's voice was a low murmur in the sudden stillness. It's a metaphor, he said. The simple statement, landing with the weight of a tombstone. Or perhaps it was a terrible mistake. Another deep foghorn blast tore through the air, so powerful it rattled the beams overhead, shaking dust loose like a dry snowfall. This time, a new sound joined in. The slow, grinding crunch of gravel and earth, a deep, wet, tearing noise like something colossal was being dragged across the field outside. The air in the room grew thick with the scent of damp soil and something faintly metallic, like cold iron. Sarah's voice was a fragile thread in the heavy quiet, trembling as she whispered, "That was inside the fog. Something's moving out there." The family stood at the threshold of the visible world, armed with a shotgun and powerful flashlights, facing the impenetrable wall of fog. John raised his flashlight, the beam piercing the murk only to dissolve into nothingness a few feet in. A faint scent of ozone and damp earth wafted from the mist, carrying an unsettling chill that clung to their skin. From within the fog came a low, rhythmic scratching sound, like claws dragging across stone. The flashlight beam doesn't illuminate the darkness. It's swallowed whole. John's voice is a tight wire of controlled panic. We walk to the truck. We drive straight down the road. We don't stop. The air in the cab grows thick with the metallic scent of ozone and a creeping, primal dread. They linked hands, forming a fragile chain against the infinite white expanse, and stepped forward into the waiting fog. The world dissolved into nothingness around them, erased in an instant. Sound warped and stretched, becoming a distant, alien echo. In the sudden void, the only thing left was the deafening rhythm of their own panicked breaths. The ground beneath them shifted from parched earth to slick, irregular stones, the air biting with cold. Mike's whisper cut through the stillness. "Dad, we're descending. This can't be right." Then, a new sound intruded, a soft, rhythmic lapping. It was the unmistakable, hollow slap of water against unyielding rock. A gull's cry tore through the fog, warped and unnatural like a tape played backwards. His flashlight beam sliced the gray, and there it stood. Impossibly, a lighthouse, but it was all wrong. A monolith of blackened brick and corroded iron. It rose from a field of broken stones crusted with barnacles, reeking of salt, rot, and cold iron. Its foundation was encircled by dead, salt-bleached corn stalks. The lantern room's glass lay shattered, yet from within, that blinding beam swept mechanically across the void. Etched into the iron door, barely visible beneath the rust, were the words, "Beacon for the lost places." Sarah's voice broke, a sob catching in her throat. "It's not here. We're not here. This location exists on no cartographer's chart." The lighthouse's great iron door groans open, a sound felt in the marrow, not heard by the ear. From the impossible threshold, a warm, sickly sweet yellow light spills outward. The air grows thick with the scent of ozone and old, wet stone. The crackle of a phantom hearth and the ghost of Sarah's apple pie filled the air, a cruel mirage of lost warmth. Echoes of their own laughter, plucked from better days, twisted into a hollow, beckoning chorus. It was a perfect, beautiful lie, a sensory trap woven from longing and despair. John gritted his teeth, the muscles in his jaw standing taut. It's a siren song. Don't listen. Don't look at the light. But Mike was entranced, drawn toward that open door. Within that welcoming glow, he saw a shadow, a tall, gaunt figure in a weathered keeper's coat, its back turned. It was staring up at the broken lamp above, motionless as stone. Then, without turning, a voice like dry reeds and grinding gears spoke. The sea was here. Once, it remembers, and in its profound loneliness, it pulls places that feel like shores to its forgotten existence. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and ancient rot, as if reality itself were decaying at the edges. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the stone. A sound felt more than heard, like the groaning of a colossal, slumbering thing. Then, a whisper, not in the ear, but in the mind. a dry rustle of forgotten tongues, promising an end to solitude. You built your home on a memory of a coast, on shifting sands of nostalgia that now felt treacherous. The figure before you began its slow, deliberate turn, joints creaking like old timber. John didn't wait to see its face. The air itself had grown thick with the scent of ozone and damp earth. "Run!" he screamed, voice cracking. Follow the beam backwards. They wheeled and fled, scrambling over the stone-strewn shore that had been their field, chasing the brief, sweeping path where the lighthouse beam wasn't the only patches of true darkness in that blinding white. Bursting from the fog line, they collapsed on their own dry, dusty porch. The fog withdrew behind them, rushing back across the field like a tide reversing. The phantom horns and crashing waves faded, leaving a void of absolute, unnatural quiet. Panting and weeping, they clung to one another as the farm returned to its ordinary state beneath a clear, star-dusted sky. Mike whispered, voice trembling, "Is it gone?" In answer, a lone, final foghorn echoed from a vast, impossible distance. It never threatened us, but its presence was a constant, oppressive weight. It was just there, a silent reminder that something watched from the edges of our reality. 1 week later, the Carter farmhouse stood abandoned, its windows like vacant eyes. The last of their belongings were loaded, the scent of dust and old wood hanging in the still air. The house stood hollow and vacant. Sarah cast a final glance toward the field, her gaze lingering on the darkened soil. The air carried a faint metallic tang, like old pennies in damp earth. "We're not telling anyone," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "They'd never believe us." John's voice was a low, steady anchor in the dark. "We'll believe us. That's enough." As the vehicle pulled away, Mike twisted in the back seat, pressing his face to the cold glass of the rear window. His hands trembled as he raised his digital camera, its plastic casing slick with a cold sweat. Through the lens, he zoomed in on the empty, ink-black void where the lighthouse had stood just moments before. On the camera's screen, in the heat haze rising from the field, the air shimmered for a single, flickering frame like a desert mirage. Within that distortion, he glimpsed the faint, spectral outline of the black and white tower. The screen cut to black, leaving only the steady, rhythmic crash of waves against a shore. They moved to Arizona, the driest place they could find. But on certain nights, when an uncommon fog settles over the desert valley, John swears he catches the scent of salt on the air, metallic and sharp. Mike's barometer needle drops sharply, for no earthly reason, and the atmosphere grows dense. Without a word, they extinguish every light and retreat into a perfect, protective darkness. Because you must never show a beacon you are lost. The last sound, a single questioning blast of a foghorn, impossibly distant. It was a sound that did not belong, a phantom call from a sea that wasn't there. The note hung in the dry air, then frayed into the whisper of the desert wind, leaving only the taste of dust and a profound, unsettling vacancy.